Joining us today on MSUEagles.com is Richard Fletcher. Richard is the Senior Associate Athletic Director and Director of Compliance here in the Morehead State Athletic Department. And Richard, today we're going to talk about compliance, an area that you know well, probably better than anybody else on this campus. Outside of recruiting, I know you wear a lot of different hats for MSU Athletics, but from a true compliance standpoint and outside of recruiting, where is the majority of your time spent on a daily and weekly basis?
You know, in compliance itself, it's all about progress toward degree for our current student athletes, and then also to initial eligibility. In July, we are attempting to bring in some around 175 prospective student athletes and make them student athletes. So we're looking at initial eligibility, making sure they're doing what they need to do with the eligibility center. And then as far as our current student athletes, I spend a lot of time looking at progress toward degree. Do they have the GPA they need? Do they have the hours toward degree that they need in order to be eligible for the upcoming year? That is a huge amount of my time.
You referenced in the last video a representative of a school's athletic interest. Who are those people, and what can they do and what can they not do from an NCAA rules standpoint?
It's kind of a broad statement that actually the bylaws say a number of different things that make you a representative. But number one is you can be an alumnus of the institution. You could have worked there. You could have some association to the university. You could have donated money. Anyone that helps to actively recruit a prospective student athlete to Morehead State University becomes a representative. So if you're someone that says, hey, you really need to go to Morehead State and you're working in the interest of Morehead State University, well, you become a representative. When you become a representative, that limits what you can and cannot do with that prospective student athlete. Those people are a huge concern for every athletic department in the country. So what we try to do is we try to educate, saying here's what you can and cannot do. For instance, prospective or representative athletic interests cannot make phone calls to prospective student athletes saying, why don't you come to Morehead State, because that makes you a recruiting coach. That's a violation. Also, too, they can't have contact with them. They can't just go up and start having a conversation about here's what you need to do. You know, basic conversation's okay, but as soon as you start to recruit, that's a problem when you're a representative athletic interest.
In the media, we hear a lot about improper benefits. I know the list of improper benefits could run pages and pages, and we don't have time to talk about all the scenarios today, but I guess at this level, what are some of the most common mistakes that people make, or maybe things they haven't even thought about that could be,
there are multiple
construed as an improper benefit?
Absolutely. From simple as you are out at a minor league baseball game and a student athlete from Morehead State walks up and is watching the game. It's a warm day and you decide I'm going to buy a bottle of water for that student athlete. Well, if you're a representative, what you've just done is a violation. You've given a benefit to him because he's a student athlete. Now, if we're giving that water to everyone, that changes it. But if you buy it specifically because they're an athlete, yes. You go to a restaurant and you see that student athlete there and he's had a great game. He's a football student athlete. It's a Saturday evening and you pay for his meal because he's a football player. That's an illegal benefit. There's a number of those things that just because they're student athletes, if they're receiving the benefit, well, that's extra benefits. See a student athlete across campus, and he's walking. He's like, oh, I'm gonna stop and pick him up, and you give him a ride. The occasional ride is one thing, but once you do that a couple times, now you've received a benefit. So it's as simple as a bottle of water to rides to paying for meals. All those are things that most people will do because they're trying to be nice. But when you look at it from the rules of the NCAA, that's a violation. That's a violation because that's an extra benefit.
Every month during the school year, the full-time athletic department staff and all of our coaches, both head coaches and assistant coaches, gather in ADUC, the student center here on the Morehead State campus. And you have a staff meeting, but it's definitely focused on compliance. If you could just kind of explain the fact that you have to document those meetings for NCAA purposes, and then kind of hit some of the highlights of what you normally discuss at those meetings.
If you ever look at violations, major violations that occur through the NCAA, the biggest issue that most people have is institutional control. So what we try to do is try to show that we are attempting to educate all people that are a part of the university, not just in athletics, but across financial aid, housing, you name it. But we do have meetings once a month where we talk about official, unofficial visits, what you can and cannot do, progress toward degree, what the new bylaw or the new proposals that are out, what those potentially new bylaws could mean to you in recruiting and visits, those types of things. We try to hit every, obviously the compliance manual is a little over 400 pages, so there's no way to educate on all parts of the book, but we attempt to educate on all aspects that we deal with on a daily basis.
You also 4 times a year meet with the student athletes, the entire group. usually in Button Auditorium. What are some of the messages you try to address there? Because I know there are a lot of topics you want to cover and you only have so much time with them.
Absolutely. We talk about agents, what you can and cannot do with an agent, which is basically nothing. I mean, if you have an agent, automatically you're a professional athlete, so that destroys that. So we talk about agents. We talk about extra benefits, and if someone tries to give you a stuffed animal after a basketball game, do you accept that or not? Or if someone, after a football game, someone tries to pay for a meal, how to turn that down, be appreciative of it. We try to educate along those lines. We talk about progress toward a degree. Here's how many hours you have to have in order to be eligible for next year. We discuss things simple like Sweet 16 and gambling or the basketball brackets. If you put money to that, what does that do to you? If you're playing in a fantasy league and there's an opportunity for winning money on that, what does that do to you? If there's a prize available, what does that do to your eligibility? So we try to educate them. That way they're aware of it on the front end. Because again, it may just be someone being nice to you and paying for a meal, but actually, as soon as that extra benefit happens, that student athlete is not eligible. They are removed from the floor until they reimburse that meal back, and we make that donation to some program.
What are some of the most common mistakes that coaches and student athletes make? You were talking a little bit about improper benefits, but I mean, if there are things across the country, not just here at Morehead State, but just common mistakes that people make, what could you narrow that list down at all?
Simple things. A ride across campus, giving someone a ride from one end of campus to the other, and you do that on occasion. Occasionally it's a horrible weather. There might be some excuse to why you could do that. But to give someone a ride from one end of campus to the other is an example of an extra benefit. Another one, use of a cell phone or a phone in the office. Something simple that that we just kind of say, oh, that's not a big deal. But you're giving a benefit to the student athlete because you may not do that very same thing for other student athletes. It's along those lines. It's the extra step that is not allowed by the bylaws that you do for the student athlete.
Richard Fletcher, the Senior Associate Athletic Director and Director of Compliance here at Morehead State, joining us today on MSUEagles.com. And Richard, I know one of the jobs that you probably have to do and don't enjoy doing is reporting minor violations. I think they happen at all schools across the country. It could be something as simple as the things you've referenced, and they're not a big deal, but you do have to report those and document those. Can you just kind of walk us through that process when those types of things happen?
We call those secondary violations. The NCAA is now looking at that. We're actually going to tier that. They may make that into 4 levels, but for the conversation piece at this very moment, there are 2 levels. There's major violations and there's secondaries. Secondary violations happen all the time. That's when someone does something that's against the bylaw that was unintentional, and it only happens one time. Then, that, for instance, someone buys a meal for a student athlete, or someone has contact thinking that they're allowed to see that prospective student athlete off campus because they think it's in the area that they're allowed to do it, and it winds up it's off campus and is during a non-contact period. All those are examples. So we write it up, we send it in, we keep running total that we submit to the Ohio Valley Conference saying here's our violations. Then we do some education saying here's what you've done and here's why you can't do that. Now if we continue to do the same things, that minor violation becomes a major issue, becomes a major violation. That's one of the reasons that we do education, or as much education as we try to do. But we report it. NCAA wants to see that quarterly, but we will report all violations that we're aware of and do some education behind it.
You talked about the NCAA manual being approximately 400 pages, and even a trained professional and somebody as intelligent as you, it's probably hard to keep up with every line and every paragraph in that book. I know that you consult the Ohio Valley Conference office on occasion. You probably contact the NCAA directly for some interpretations and some help. If you could just talk about kind of the types of cases that you maybe take to the conference or the national office and your interaction with those types of people.
Yeah, like take during summer period. Men's women's basketball has certified events that they're allowed to go watch that prospective student athlete play. NCAA has a list of those of events that we're allowed to visit. Then there's some other ones that are non-scholastic AAU games that are not certified, or maybe we get questions about that pretty often. So we'll do a lot of research into this game's going on, or this tournament's happening in Orlando. It's not on the list, but we hear that it's certified by the state association. So we actually. Our Ohio Valley Conference office, we utilize them often. Same way too for some general interp stuff. Sometimes you can read the bylaw and think it's saying one thing, and to clarify it, you will go and look at the proposal, the original intent of it to make sure it's covered. If it's not, that's when I make that phone call either to the Ohio Valley Conference, which is the biggest phone call, and then sometime to the NCAA. They have an interpretation line.
Sarah Larson on our staff here at Morehead State is the assistant AD for Student Athlete Services. She focuses a lot on academics, but I know when it comes to compliance and eligibility, from a compliance and eligibility standpoint, I know you get involved with academics too, and you referenced that in your last video. Not too long ago, the academic progress rate, also known as APR, was released by the NCAA. If you could just hit a couple highlights of that and the overall intention of that program.
You know, the biggest thing, the reason the APR came out was for graduation success rate. They thought if they were to ascribe a number, if you take a student athlete, for every semester he has the opportunity for 2 points. 1 point is an eligibility point. Did he meet the bylaw requirements in order to be eligible to participate for that coming year? Then you have retention, which is, did we retain that student athlete? Well, when you add those two together during the fall, they could be a 2 of 2. And then you take a look at the spring. They can also have the opportunity for being a 2 of 2, which means for the full year they could be a 4 of 4. Anytime we don't make one of those points, then that number drops down. But the original intent behind that is if they're a 4 of 4, we've kept them eligible, and we've retained them, which means it's going to increase our graduation rate. Well, they've added a few little exceptions in there. One of them is if you have a student athlete at the university for over a year, they have better than a 2.6, they transfer out of your institution, go to another school, so they leave with a 2.6, they are eligible. They are going to play at another 4-year institution. If that happens, they would not be a 3 of 4, they'd be a 3 of 3 because they meet the exception. If they're going to go play professional sports, if they are eligible, go play a professional sport, they would be a 3 of 3. So what they've actually found is through the APR that there's some opportunities there for student athletes to not graduate, go somewhere else, and it's actually going to drop your graduation success rate. So they've made some adjustments. They've actually increased the APR to a 930, which means that you're basically going to graduate somewhere between 50 to 60% of your prospective student athletes as they come in through the institution.
We have the traditional high school student athletes who move on to the college level and have 4 years of eligibility. Some sports here at Morehead State, we have quite a few transfers on the roster too. If you could just talk about kind of the different types of transfers. I know in certain scenarios they have to sit out a year before they can gain full eligibility. If you could just kind of touch on that topic. That
is sport specific when it comes to year in residence. So you have certain sports. In football, there's an exception. We actually we are fortunate that we don't offer scholarship football. So if you transfer from a championship series or a bowl series from Division I to a non-scholarship program, then that year in residence waived. Men's basketball has a year in residence clause, so does baseball, so does women's basketball, hockey, and a few other sports as well, which means if you transfer from one program to another program, you'll have to sit out a year before you're allowed to play. There are some exceptions to that. If you take a look at soccer, softball, if you transfer automatically, you're allowed, as long as you're eligible, progress toward degree and grade point average, and you leave that institution that you're transferring from eligible, you'll be allowed to participate at that next school.
That's Richard Fletcher, the Senior Associate Athletic Director and Director of Compliance here at Morehead State, and we thank you for your time today, Richard.
Thanks, Matt.